Scroll of Record, Kolbrin Bible, Book 4, Sons of Fire, Chapter 7 through 14. My belief is they have different perspectives of a time of troubles, starting with invasion, migration, journey to a land of mist, harbor of sorrow, separation, Haskaya returns, struggles, and a new day. I will be leaving the verses as is, but moving some around to highlight where I think it shows crossovers of the same events, but from different perspectives. No commentary. I'll leave it up to the individual to decide if it makes sense. Kolbrin Bible, Book 4, Sons of Fire, Chapter 13, The Rolls of Record, 7. SOF 13:1. In the 7th and 20th year came Emos, who was a learned man, and with him came Zadok, who was one of us. Masu, son of Chanthel, came also, and others in 4 large ships. Kita came in a ship apart. SOF 13:2. They were welcomed, and Kita set up a place of learning, and many came and sat before him. When Kita died, those whom he had taught said, "Let us record the knowledge of our master, so that it may be added to the records and not lost." SOF 13:7. There was war between those who lived within the city and those who lived beyond its limits. Those who lived within the city grew all kinds of things and clothed themselves with the labor of their hands. Those who lived outside the city were hairy hunters, clad in the skin of wild animals. SOF 13:8. Outside the grounds of the city there was a holy mountain, and priests lived within it. The men of the city brought them herbs and fruit with bread and wine. The men who were not of the city brought them sheep and goats and beasts of the chase. SOF 13:9. The men of the city loved wealth like city dwellers and were less generous than those who gained their food by strength and hunting. The men of the city held back portions of their dues and caused the priests to look upon them less kindly. When the great day of the sun came and the high priest gave his blessing of fruitfulness, he withheld it from the city dwellers and gave it only to the hunters and herdsmen. That night, when those who had received the blessings were rejoicing beside the mountain, the city dwellers fell upon them and slew many. This was the cause of a great war in which many men died. SOF 13:10. Men did to men what their natures inclined them to do, but they also ravaged women and children. The evil grew in greatness until the land could no longer contain it and had to be purged clean. Therefore the revenging dragon was called up out of the heavenly abyss, and it lashed the land with fire and thunder. The whole land was filled with its smoky breath, and men choked to death. SOF 13:11. The land was split apart between the city and the mountain, and the sea rolled in upon it, so the city was destroyed. The valleys of the mountain were filled with dead men and animals, and with trees. SOF 13:12. The high priest survived with 7 others who were priests. He brought these together with 110 men and their wives and children into Lebeth, which is a land among high cliffs at the edge of the wide plain. SOF 13:13. Here the priests sought to preserve their wisdom and knowledge and pass it on to the children, but it became distorted and misunderstood. They did not understand the radiating power from the bodies of the dead which could guide the living. Even we do not understand these things clearly. SOF 13:14. The priests who came from the land of copper could make their soul depart from the body at their command and return as they willed. When ignorant men saw seemingly dead bodies return to life, when the soul came back into them, they thought the same could happen to a dead body if kept long enough. Even this superstition stays with us. SOF 13:15. Later, when they had left Lebeth, men believed that if they kept a dead body so that it remained whole, the soul would not finally enter the sphere of accounting. Such was the knowledge of their wickedness and their fear of their fate, that they used every art to prevent the body falling apart and entering decay. They may have believed that, Until the soul entered the sphere above earth, it remained flexible and capable of acting to counter some of the ill effects of a life of wickedness and ignorance. SOF 1316. Later still, the light of truth dimmed until it could scarce be seen, but always there were the few within the many, and the many hid them. The light of the few was a precious thing, safeguarded with diligence and care. The people knew the many, but the few remained unknown. Their treasures safe, gods multiplied, but those who sought truth among them could always find it if they were sincere and diligent seekers. It was then as it is now. SOF 1333. Strangers came into the land of our beginnings and brought practices which were different but more acceptable. They promised an easier road. They displayed deceitful marvels, the usual baits thrown to the ignorant. Their hands were heavy against us, and what could we show except truth arrayed in our earthly robes of simplicity? Even the princes turned against their own customs, and the twin priesthoods of the undergods became earthly wise and corrupt. Few were ready to undergo the perils of initiation. No more were prepared to accept the austere life prescribed. As spiritual barrenness spread, evil practices crept in to fill the places vacated by the sacred mysteries. The candidates accepted into the body of light became fewer and fewer. This is a mental exercise, a what-if scenario. I'm not going to argue if it is historical. I myself tend to believe that it is, but I'll leave it up to each person to decide. What I do believe is it can be a great morality tale. That is what I'm attempting to do here. There are myths, self-help books that we can all accept as wisdom or having some value even though it's not labeled as from God. I see the other religious texts like the Bible, the Quran, or the Torah as having the same value. We argue only over the claim that it came from God. To me, that clouds the real value in all the books. So if it helps, look at this as a morality tale.